Before Jesus ever called himself the light of the world, he said something quieter first, something aimed directly at you. He said, "You are the light." Not a reflection of one, not a borrowed glow. The actual thing, most people have heard this verse 100 times, without ever hearing the word underneath it. NUHRA. Tonight, we slow down and actually listen to it. For centuries, much of what the earliest Aramaic-speaking Christians understood about light and identity was gradually softness, the teaching passed from Aramaic into Greek, then Latin, then English, each translation carrying real meaning forward, but losing some of the texture along the way. In 1945, near Hammadi in Egypt, a collection of ancient manuscripts was uncovered, reigniting serious scholarly interest in how the earliest followers of Jesus actually spoke, thought, and prayed. That discovery didn't hand historians a lost recording of Jesus' voice, but it did something valuable. It reminded the modern world that this teaching began in Aramaic, in homes and hillsides, not in courtrooms of doctrine. That reminder is where Nura begins. Jesus taught in Aramaic, not Hebrew, not Greek, the language spoken at family tables, in marketplaces, between friends walking home at dusk. In the Aramaic-speaking tradition, words were never treated as mere labels. A word carried the shape of the thing it named. Nura means light, but not distant light. Like starlight, you only observe. It means light you carry. Light that comes from inside and moves outward through you into a room. Many who study this tradition describe it as a gentle reminder. You were never designed to hide. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, right after the Jesus turns to the crowd and says, plainly, "You are the light of the world. Not you will become it. Not earn it, and then you'll shine. Already, present tense. Say the word slowly, NUHRA. And notice it doesn't ask you to perform anything. It simply names what was already true before you learned to shrink yourself to fit into smaller spaces. So what did Jesus mean when he said, "You carry Nura, meaning light, an inner brightness that was never meant to stay hidden"? He gave a simple, almost domestic image. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket. They set it on a stand, so it gives light to everyone in the house. This wasn't poetry for poetry's sake. It was an observation about how ordinary life works. Light exists to be used, not stored away out of caution. Think about the parts of yourself you've learned to dim over the years. The opinion you stop sharing. The joy you learned to downplay so you wouldn't seem like too much. The gift you quietly stopped using because someone once made you feel foolish for having it. None of that was Nura going out. It was Nura being covered. This is where the modern world's version of humility drifts from what Jesus was actually teaching. We've been taught that shrinking is the same as being humble. But covering your light was never the goal here. It was the very thing Jesus gently corrected in his own listeners. Real humility isn't hiding your light. It's not being confused about where it came from. There is a second half to this teaching still ahead about what happens when your light is finally uncovered, and who actually benefits when it is. That's where we go next. If this teaching already feels this deep, imagine having a full guide with deeper explanations of JESUS's true teachings in Errico. You'll find the link to the study guide in the comments. And the best is yet to come in the next chapters. You'll discover what could change everything for you. Because once you understand the full weight of what Jesus meant by Nura, you will never read Light of the World as a simple compliment again. Picture the setting again. Jesus is on a hillside, surrounded by fishermen, mothers, farmers, tax collectors, the poor and the overlooked people who had spent their whole lives being told they were ordinary, replaceable, forgettable. And to this exact crowd, he doesn't say, "Some of you carry light." He says, "You are the light of the world." All of them. No exceptions carved out for the ones who felt too broken, too poor, too unimportant to matter. This matters because Nura, that inner light meant to be seen, not hidden, was never framed as a reward for the spiritually advanced. It was named as already present in ordinary, unremarkable people. The Aramaic-speaking communities who first carried this teaching understood light not as achievement, but as identity. You don't work your way into having Nura. you work your way into remembering you already do. Consider the image Jesus uses next. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden. This wasn't a random comparison. In first-century Judea, hilltop cities were visible from great distances. Especially at night, when their lamps were lit, beacons travelers used to navigate home. Jesus was telling this crowd, quite plainly, that their lives were meant to function the same way, not performing brightness for applause, but simply existing visibly enough that others could find their way by watching them. This is where the ancient Aramaic understanding of light differs sharply from how modern culture treats visibility. Today, being seen is often tied to image, curated performance, proving worth through appearance. But Nura was never about being noticed. It was about being useful the way a lamp is useful. Not for its own sake, but for the sake of whoever is stumbling in the dark nearby. Think of someone in your life who has quietly kept you steady without ever making a show of it. A parent who stayed calm during your worst year. A friend whose honesty, however uncomfortable, kept you from making a mistake. That is Nura in its most ordinary form. Light that doesn't announce itself, but changes the room anyway. Jesus was not asking his listeners to become something foreign to themselves. He was asking them to stop covering something that was already theirs. And this raises the question we carry into the next chapter. If Nura was never meant to be hidden, why do so many of us instinctively hide it anyway? The answer reaches back further than we might expect, into fear, shame, and a very old, very human habit of ducking under the basket the moment the room gets too quiet. Why do we hide our light? Jesus never asked this question outright in the text, but it sits underneath everything he says next. Because a teacher does not spend this much time correcting a behavior unless that behavior is common, understandable, and deeply rooted in ordinary human experience. The Aramaic-speaking world Jesus taught in was not naive about shame. Shame was a powerful social force then. Hustasit is now. The fear of standing out wrong, of being too visible in a way that invites ridicule or rejection. Nura, the light meant to be carried outward, not stored Hawaii, was never at risk from external forces alone. Its greatest threat has always come from within, from the quiet decision to dim yourself before anyone else gets the chance to do it for you. Think about the basket Jesus describes. A basket isn't a weapon aimed at the lamp from outside. It's something placed over it, usually by the same hand that lit it. This detail carries enormous weight. Jesus wasn't warning against outside persecution, extinguishing your light. He was warning against self-concealment, the habit of covering your own flame preemptively, just in case someone might not like what it reveals. This connects directly back to the Beatitudes that opened this same sermon. The poor in spirit, the meek, those hungering for righteousness. These were people the world had already taught to expect less, to take up less space, to apologize for existing loudly. And to this exact audience, Jesus says, your light is not a liability. It was never something to manage carefully out of fear. It is simply what you carry, and hiding it doesn't protect you. It only leaves the room around you darker than it needed to be. There is also a communal dimension here that gets lost in individualistic readings. Jesus doesn't say, let your light shine so you feel proud of yourself. He says, let it shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. The purpose of uncovering Nura was never self-promotion. It was pointing beyond yourself entirely, using your visibility to reveal something true about where the light originated in the first place. Right now, you might be asking yourself, why am I only discovering this truth now? Don't worry, we thought about that. We're here to help you go deeper with a guide made for this journey. The link is in the comments. This sets up the final turn in our teaching, because understanding that your light is meant to be seen is only half the picture. The other half is learning what happens to the people standing closest to you once you finally stop hiding it. That is where we go next. There is one more layer to Nura worth uncovering before we close. What actually happens to the people around you once you stop hiding your light? Because Jesus never framed this teaching as a private, individual matter. It was always relational. Light, by its very nature, only means something in relation to the darkness nearby, and to the people trying to find their way through it. Think again about the lamp on a stand. Jesus doesn't describe it lighting itself for its own satisfaction. He says it gives light to everyone in the house. The Aramaic-speaking communities, who first carried this teaching, understood something modern individualism often forgets. Your visibility was never just about you. When you stop covering Nura, the light you carry, the people nearest to you are the first to feel the difference, whether or not they ever say so out loud. Consider what this looked like practically for the people listening to Jesus that day. A fisherman who stopped hiding his honesty at the docks became someone others trusted with hard decisions. A mother who stopped shrinking her wisdom in front of the men in her household became someone the next generation quietly modeled themselves after. None of them needed a title or a platform. They simply stopped covering what they already carried, and the room around them changed because of it. This is where JESUS's teaching becomes uncomfortable in a good way. If Nura is meant to be seen, then hiding it isn't a neutral choice. It has a cost not just to you, but to whoever was meant to find their way by watching you. The friend who never gets to see your honesty modeled. The child who never witnesses what quiet integrity looks like up close. The stranger who needed to see one ordinary person refused to shrink, just to believe it was possible for themselves too. And this is why Jesus connects the lamp so directly to glorifying your Father in heaven. Uncovering your light was never framed as arrogance, because the point was never to draw attention to yourself for its own sake. It was to let something true be visible through you, so clearly that the people watching recognized it pointed toward something larger than you alone. This is the opposite of performance. It's transparency. We are just scratching the surface of this ancient power. Get ready, because in our next video, I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock spiritual authority you've never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss this unfolding revelation. So how do you actually begin living this out? Daily. Until uncovering Nura becomes instinct rather than something you have to remind yourself to do? That is where we turn now in the final chapter. Understanding Nura is not the goal. Living uncovered is. So here is the practice. Each morning, before you check anything or speak to anyone, pause and say the word once. Slowly, Nura. Let it settle before the day's noise begins. This is not a magic phrase. It is a daily reminder that you are not starting from empty. You already carry something worth uncovering before you've proven anything to anyone. Then choose one place in your day where you have been quietly hiding. It might be an honest opinion you've been swallowing to keep the peace. It might be a talent you've stopped using because someone once made you feel foolish for having it. It might simply be joy you've learned to downplay so you don't seem like too much. Uncover it once, deliberately, in that one place today. At day's end, ask honestly, did I let Nura be seen today, or did I reach for the basket out of habit? This is not about guilt. It is about noticing the pattern so it loosens its grip gradually. Some days, you will uncover boldly. Other days, you'll barely manage a flicker. Both count because the practice is the return, not the perfection. Just a quick reminder, the transformation guides for a fuller life are waiting for you, right there in the comments. Before you leave, if this message touched your heart or brought new understanding into your life, WRITE. The word restoration in the comments below. Your testimony may encourage someone else who is seeking healing and renewal. Thank you for sharing this moment of ancient wisdom with us. Until the next revelation, walk in peace, walk in freedom, and walk in the power of Nura.